Good morning, this is Dr. K, and I'd like to talk to you about writing responses for PRM600. Our agenda today is to review the main points of the document called Week 2, Writing Responses in PRM600, and really to talk about the power of writing concisely. If you have not yet gone out and gotten the resource from the Writing Center, this booklet called Introduction to the APA, I really suggest that you do so. It's so simple, it's so specific to exactly the rules that we use here at St. Mary's, and it's complete. Today we're going to talk about conciseness, and conciseness isn't simply using the least amount of words. That would be wonderful, but that's not it. So what it is a combination of critical thinking about what the real concepts are, putting together a draft that gets some of those ideas down on paper, just in any old words, but gets them down on paper, and then revising those to a more polished state and using any feedback that you've gotten or that your peers have gotten. And the end result here is concise writing. So here are the basics of writing a response to a prompt. The first thing that we want you to do is analyze what exactly is the question being asked. Because if you start out with a misconception about the question, what you'll write won't be directed exactly to answering that question. So be very careful to restate the question in your own terms. And that's a good thing to put in the first paragraph, is a restatement of the question. Then the next part would be identifying what are the key concepts that support this. And then find some experts who actually can say what that key concept is in their terms. And then compare and contrast some of the key elements. So remember, when we're looking at ideas, there's your original idea, which is your opinion or your experience, or there are things that are not your idea. The fact that you feel that teams work better, that they're limited to 3 people, no matter how big the project is, might be your opinion, and it might be your experience, but it's not the concept of project team that came from an expert source, and you may or may not be right. So be careful when you're doing your ideas versus ideas that come from experts. A lot of academic writing has to do with making sure that our ideas build upon what others have done who came before us. In that book that I ask you to download, there are some sections that are really important. People think that APA style is all about double spacing and it's about citing, but it's more than that. It's really about the way that we present ideas, the conciseness, the accuracy and conciseness of how we use the English language. And so all of these sections that are in the book by Prentice would be super helpful for you to read through. Our focus during this course is on accurately answering a simple prompt. So for each question or prompt, we want you to evaluate what is the question being asked, figure out what you think the answer is to that, find citations or information from textbooks that support your answer, and then kind of explain, show us, this is point D, Show us either from information from a case study that we're working with together or with your own example that you understand how these concepts are applied in real life. And that's an excellent use of your own example, of your own opinion, is to use an example from your past. But make sure it's very brief and it accurately describes the concept that you're trying to talk about. And make sure that you summarize what your conclusions are. So when your writing is being evaluated as a graduate level writer, part of what you're being graded on is accuracy. Did you get the right question, and did you find the relevant sources and the relevant section number that really support that? In terms of clarity, did you paraphrase succinctly the key concept, or were you kind of off in the weeds, just restating some concepts but not the right ones? In terms of depth and significance, it's important that you figure out what's really important to answering this question. Because if your examples or your concepts that you bring in are peripheral to what we're talking about, that's not as useful to us. We want you to stick to the topic and be concise. Here's another thing: support and questioning. If there's little support for your conclusions, or your personal conclusions are given as if they're the word because you said so, that's not going to work in academic writing. We want you to really support your opinion with references, and it's okay to question those references and to say, you know, everybody thinks that teams have to be huge, but in my experience, there are times when a team has to be a lot smaller. And finally, how directly did you answer the question? If you misinterpreted the question being asked and identified the key case elements, that's great. And it's really also best of all if you paraphrase the question that was being asked and briefly answer each part of the question. Because remember, a lot of the prompts that you get in academic writing have multiple parts to them. In PRM600, you do not want to go to the internet. You want to stay away, avoid it. You have plenty of information being thrown at you in Kathy Schwalbe's excellent book that interprets the PMBOK guide, and in the PMBOK guide itself, which is usually your primary source for definitions or concepts. And the internet will only do you astray. One of the issues that happens is that as an instructor, we can often tell the difference between your personal voice and the way that you write and the way that the internet sounds. And we'll be reading along and we'll hear your voice, and all of a sudden it sounds like you swallowed a dictionary or swallowed a project management site like ganthead.com. And we can tell the difference. We go out, we search for that phrase, we see that it was plagiarized, maybe not intentionally, but it was copied and pasted, or copied and pasted and only a few words were changed. And what we wind up doing is giving you a 0 for the entire assignment because it's not all your work. And you certified when you submitted your work that 100% of it was your work. So the internet really tends to get people off in the weeds because it sounds so good, but it's not always correct, and it's definitely not yours to use willy-nilly. When you put in references, they're pre-formatted for you. You can just go ahead and cut and paste those. And remember to be careful about paraphrasing. Really read the idea, close the book, write something in your own words, and then go back and check and see how close you got. Use direct quotes very sparingly. If I see a direct quote that's 40 words or more, first of all, it needs a different formatting. And secondly, I know that you didn't get down to the real essence, the real important part that author was saying. You got a whole big paragraph, and that doesn't tell me that you understood the paragraph. It simply tells me that you know how to copy and paste a paragraph, and that's not valuable in academic writing. In conclusion, choose good sources, write concisely, and practice, practice, practice in PRM600, because we will give you feedback and are so happy to be part of your learning journey. That's it. Any questions? Give me a call, send me an email. Thank you so much.